let's introduce floating environment as the way how to correctly include objects into our text. By objects we mean images, tables, snippets of code, because whenever we embed some object in our text, we need to write a caption and a number to it. Otherwise our text don't look serious. Placing a table in the text this way is not correct. It's not really nice, and it misses some information. So in order to correctly insert anything in our text, we need to use so-called floating environment. There is a bunch of floating environments, and we will introduce them in other videos. For tables, we use floating environment which is called table. So let's put every table into the table floating environment. And note that we have table as a floating environment, and then tabular, which defines the table itself. So those are two completely different things, and we need both of them. So to make it correct, we should place every table into this floating environment. And let's look what happens. When floating environment means that the object starts to float in the text. It's no longer anchored to some specific place. On the other hand, it can move to other locations. You might not like that the table is aligned to the left. In this, the floating environment can help. To simply make the table centered, you can use the centering command. So centering means make the content centered. It is alright to have it aligned to the left. This is just up to your style if you wish this. Well, this default typesetting of floating objects to the top of the page is completely alright. You can leave it as this if it doesn't bother you. If you wish to move it to the place according to your source, so just below this paragraph, we need to insert some hints. So each floating environment can have a hint in the form of optional arguments, where we can basically say here at this particular place, at the top of some page, to the bottom of some page, or reserve special page for this environment without text. To anchor it as close as possible to this particular paragraph, we can say HT and exclamation mark. The other thing we need to resolve is to include caption. So every object you insert into your text should be self-described. So imagine like you take that object, you take this table away, everybody should understand what is inside. Not in this particular case, but in case of something meaningful. Everyone should understand what is inside just from this, without reading your text. To make it possible, we need to insert caption. So we can write caption inside some floating environment and write there a summarization. So we can write something which sums up what is inside, and it's according to the document class, how it looks, how it's typeset, and particularly how it's numbered. So you may see in this case it's numbered based on the chapter number and the number of floating environment of type table inside this chapter. It should be obligation to put a caption to every floating environment, to every table image, etc. Okay, how to use it now? Once we have numbers which are unique to each of the object, we can use it to refer to that object. It doesn't really look serious if you write in your text in the following table. This is completely alright on the web, but not at scientific writing in printed text. So it's much better if you say in table 2.1. But this is quite silly way how to write it, because we want to make it safe. How to make it safe? Next to each command which generates number, which is caption in this case, we can place label. And the label is a target for a link. So let's say we name this table dummy. This contents of the label isn't visible anywhere in the output, it's just internal. We can refer to this particular label by the command ref with the same string. Now the source, the ref, is always replaced with the actual number of the label, of the caption. Well, it would be a big mistake to let table follow by the line break in the output. If it accidentally happens, you should correct it. You can correct it by the non-breaking space. You can use the trick with label with all the commands that generate numbers. So you can do it with heading, and you can do it even with items in numbered list. So let's show it with sections. You can again say label and use it somewhere you need to refer some heading. Now when we see the result, this link becomes dynamic. Well, sometimes we may not be happy with how LaTeX places floating environments, I mean especially the location. For instance, we don't really like this empty space. But the way how LaTeX works with floating environments is rather easy. It takes them sequentially. So the order in which you place the floating environments in your source matters, because it's the same order as LaTeX puts them in the PDF. So for instance, if you wish to fill this empty space, you may use this second table to it. So let's just put it there. We just need to swap those tables in the source. And let's see what LaTeX does about that. What LaTeX does is basically, generally LaTeX puts floating environments to the top of the page. Again, how to change it to anchor it to some place is HT exclamation mark, and it will be moved. So we've seen the basic use of floating environments, which is smart positioning, and in particular captioning and numbering every object which we insert into our text.